Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashterothi, and this is a special patch notes edition of the EVE Universe show, bringing EVE into context for you, my fellow Empyrean. But before we jump into the actual patch notes themselves, there are two other news articles that kind of explain the high-level understanding of some of the changes that came today. So we're going to look at those first, and then we will look at the patch notes. The first news article that we see is the Summon the Swarm update live now. This is a follow-up of the previous news article that explained to us what was going to come with these new rogue drone sites, and this is a overview more of the things that changed about it just before it was getting ready to be released. So let's look at these. Attention Capsuleers. The Summon the Swarm update is now live in EVE Online, providing daring pilots with new opportunities to earn exciting rewards. This update includes a new deployable structure, the Concord Rogue Analysis Beacon, or CRAB. Cute. This new deployable is authorized for use in low and null security space to research local rogue drone activities. To begin its broadcast and analysis cycles, it must be powered up through the use of capital or super capital class vessels. Once initiated, it will attract hostile rogue drone threats that must be destroyed in order to complete the analysis cycle. Successful completion of the will reward pilots with a new mutaplasmid technology for mutating drones, as well as both bounties and research data to be handed in for additional ISK. Thanks to extensive player testing on Singularity Test Server, a number of improvements have been made that significantly enhance the experience of the new update. Fighter targeting AI has been refined, allowing more ship types to complete the sites. Deployables have been further restricted to prevent interference with nearby player-owned structures and/or citadels. Bounty rewards have been more than doubled in the live release, and infested ogres have been modified to no longer pause the site. Ready for a new challenge? Form your fleet, acquire a rogue analysis beacon, and prepare to summon the swarm. And then there's this follow-up that's somewhat in character. Concord Preliminary Field Research Report. Over the course of many repeated deployments of the CRAB, it was observed that active scanning for rogue drone activities failed. Analysis of test data indicates signal interference rapidly reached a saturation point within the local system, rendering further operation ineffective. Restrictions and information systems have been integrated into CRAB deployable structures, providing researchers with the current state of local system signal interference levels. This information will also be updated to the Neocom firmware used by Capsuleers going forward. CRAB deployment and activation requires the involvement of Capsuleers due to specific design requirements for using the secure FTL communications equipment available within hydrostatic capsules. However, capsules have only a limited reserve of complex encryption qubits, or CEQs, available for use to securely establish the link with the CRABs and bridge the Concord FTL network during the broadcast cycle. This will impose limitations on use, and repeatedly linking to a CRAB by the same Capsuleer will eventually deplete their reserves of CEQs. The CEQs reserve available for secure linking will regenerate over time as the capsule systems generate new encryption keys. During the course of our CRAB testing and analysis, DED fleets engaged with a number of extremely dangerous modified rogue drones. It has been found that these newly detected rogue drones have been mutated by the use of the rogue drone technology. By use of a new rogue drone technology. Our fleets have made notes of several new mutaplasmids retrieved by the CRABs from the remains of the rogue drones threats encountered, all with radically different characteristics from the mutaplasmids retrieved from Triglavian technology caches. This findings urgently demands further study due to the extreme threats from these entities. We have assigned bounties on every discovery of new rogue drone variations so far. On completion of the broadcast and analysis cycle, the CRAB will relay its findings. The operating Capsuleer may retrieve any resources recovered by the CRAB. Concord has now set up purchases orders for rogue drone infestation data collected during the operations of CRAB, incentivizing Capsuleers to sell their observation data for our research team to study further. Alright, so this does give us some new information, but it also brings up some other questions. I want to just go over a couple of these points before we move on. The fighter targeting AI, I feel like this is, it's very clear that carriers were struggling with the site, and so this helps with that. Next, the deployables have been further restricted. That's fine. It just makes it so that they can't be deployed within range of structures that could potentially help, probably. Bounty rewards have been increased. And this says that it no longer pauses the site, which is something that they don't really talk about in this article, but it does in the patch notes. So we'll talk about that when we get there. So this long thing talks about these encrypted qubits, and without going too far into the issue of it like being kind of hand wavy as to how it explains what's going on, but this is something that wasn't really well understood, at least not by me. Maybe people that were more dialed into this change as it was happening. This feels like it was a change at the last minute, and it also has some other repercussions, which we'll talk about again when we go over the patch notes. But this is a very interesting requirement, because effectively what this does is it makes it so that it gives that diminishing returns in a system that they tried to do more or less with the dynamic bounty system. Although those two systems will now layer against each other, because a big portion of the rewards, or a portion of the rewards, is bounties, which I believe would be multiplied by the bounty multiplier, at least in nullsec, not so much in lowsec. Wait, no, I think lowsec still, yeah, lowsec still has bounty multipliers, so that would actually be pretty high. But this limits how many can be used within a particular day. So while the dynamic bounty system kind of rewards systems that have been less farmed, or whatever, over a longer period of time, several days, this is a 1 day hard cap, both on how many of these deployables a single player can use and how many deployables a single system can withstand. So we'll look at that more when we get to the patch notes. That's just something that we definitely want to pay attention to. Also, just so that people know, these rogue drone sheets, this is basically the same thing as like Triglavian red loot. It's its own red loot, which is kind of awkward, but same as sleeper blue loot. One of the interesting pieces of this is that this stuff is now going to need to be brought to higher lowsec by nullsec groups that have collected this stuff. I'm not sure how much they're going to love that, but yeah. So let's just move on. So our second news post that we are going to be going over today is tax changes incoming. Now, many people suspected that these changes were actually going to come next week, as it being 3 months exactly. But as these kinds of changes are wont to do, they brought it out a week early, maybe to pull the rug out from underneath people a little bit, to reward the people who happen to be prepared. Who knows? But either way, the change is here today. And because of the fact that this change looks at some relative data, we are actually going to have to first look at a different change. So this, maybe not first. So this change was the restoration, quote unquote, restoration of taxes from the reduction of taxes that was done 3 months ago. But the thing is that change was a temporary relief from a different change that happened in 2019. So let's look at that first. In 2019, there was a changes to the taxes in which the maximum sales tax increased from 2% to 5%. Maximum sales tax increased from 1% to 2.25%. Maximum broker fees from 3 to 5. Maximum taxation from 5 to 10. Maximum total taxation NPC structures from 3 to 5.25. Maximum taxation from player-owned structures from 125. I'm assuming that's by 125% from 1 to 2.25. However, the reduction in sales tax from 10% per level to 11% per level, so adding 5% total if you have that level to 5, and broker's relation increased by 3 times. So it went from 0.1% to 0.3% per level, which means that the total benefit from skills will increase from 2% to 4.5%. So what did they really do here? What they did in this change was that they made it so that non-skilled market people, non-market skilled characters are going to be paying more, and skilled characters will likely be paying even less, maybe a little bit more than they did before, but the relative value of their skills increases. Okay? So let's keep that in mind when we look at today's changes, because it's not just a restoration. They didn't just turn back on the old taxes, and they specifically refer to them as the old taxes, which is, in this dev blog, the new taxes. So remember, these later numbers are the numbers that it was before the tax changes, right? Before this last reprieve. Entrepreneurial capsuleers. Back in July, we introduced a temporary broker's fee and sales tax reduction across New Eden with the Grand Heist release, which was stated to last for 3 months. This period has now reached its end, but instead of merely returning to the market's previous taxes, a modified tax structure will be coming your way soon. Now, let me actually stop right here and digress a little bit and say that this helps me maybe understand, or makes me believe that I am starting to understand why this tax change happened. You know, at the time, a lot of people accused them of focusing on the war because of its end, but that always did not sit well with me, because these kinds of things get planned ahead of time. They don't just pull that off willy-nilly. So, you know, what was really going on? And given the fact that they are ready for scarcity to end at the end of the year, and they've had that as their deadline for some time, I feel like that this tax change was designed to do two things. One, to, in a bit of a way, give a kind of reprieve from scarcity, but more importantly, two, to increase velocity such that the effects of scarcity could be accelerated. Anywho, that was just a little thought that I just had. In the Grand Heist release, the base sales tax and broker's fee and NPC stations were each cut in half, from 5% to 2.5. So going back, remember, that's this 5%. In place of the previous numbers, taxes will be changed in the following structure. It's going from 2.5 to 8%. So it's going up again, right? So it went up from 2% to 5%, and now it's 8%. So it is now 4 times the amount as it was in 2019, before scarcity began. Worth noting. Or, I guess, mid-scarcity. Broker's fee is going from 2.5 to 3%. It previously was 5%. So broker's fees are going down. Total taxes, 5%. Goes to 11%, previously 10%. So taxes are going up a little bit. It was 5%, so it's not as big of an increase, but it's a little bit of a bump. By the way, this decrease to 3% from 5%. Let's see how that went. Oh, it's actually just, is that? Yep, I believe that is just putting it back to the way it was, which is kind of interesting. So it looks like it's a decrease, but it's actually just putting it back to the way it was. And this is only NPC brokers. So this is still giving a slight benefit towards NPC structures compared to the way it was before. So either way, or at least puts it back. Minimum taxes. Now, this is what's interesting. The sales tax is now 3.6. It previously was 2.25. The broker's fee is 1. It used to be 3. And the total taxes is 4.6, previously 5.25. So this is important. This one is going up in its minimum, while its maximum is also going up. But this one is going down in its minimum, even though it went up. It's going up in its, in its maximum. So that's kind of weird. Well, not kind of weird. It shows that they're overall reducing, they're overall giving a benefit towards having skills, but the majority of that benefit is now going to defeating brokers' fees. So right here is designed to try to rebalance player-owned structure markets versus NPC markets, because that broker's fee is the thing that you, I believe that's the one that you manage to not have to deal with when it comes to player structures, but we'll see. Maybe that's the tax one. I don't know. We'll see. I'll have to look at that. This change shifts a higher percentage of the tax division towards the sales tax instead of the order placement, permanently reducing the cost pressure associated with listing orders by moving the cost into the sales tax taken out upon purchase by another player. Ah, I see what it is. So the taxes get taken out at time of sale. The broker's fee is just for listing it. So right now, it costs a lot to put something up and to manipulate prices. So this is reducing the listing fee and moving more of the cost towards the spending fee. That makes more sense. In effect, trading at base tax values under the new structure will increase total taxes by 1% compared to pre-relief values. But if you operate with taxes reduced to their minimum, your total taxes will be decreased by 0.625 compared to pre-relief, on top of requiring less risk to list your orders in the first place. So I suspect I think that's also, maybe taxes are the NPC ones, because in fact, no, taxes are the one that's based on structures, right? Because you've got minimum broker fees and at MP. Oh yeah, so yeah, taxation and broker's fees are set by standings for NPCs. So this is rewarding skills. It's rewarding standings. All of this might be a little bit confusing. So let's go ahead and move over to the patch notes and get some final details. Now, while we look over the patch notes, we're going to go over 3 different things, because there's 3 different kind of categories of major changes that came in this patch. First is the actual Summon the Swarm site that was put in, or rather the deployable and the surrounding, I guess, event that comes with it. The second is the tax changes, and the third is the actual mutaplasmids that come from these new sites. So let's jump into it. The Concord Rogue Analysis Beacon is now available for use by Capsuleers. This new deployable creates a flashpoint for PvE gameplay for Capsuleers with new rewards available. The deployable has 4 phases: deployment, linking, scanning, and rewards. Anchoring 3 will be required to deploy, with restrictions in deployment locations. It's limited to low and null. Okay, so this is the first piece of information. The activation delay is how long from the time you drop it to the time you can link to it. Okay? Because there's deployment, linking, scanning, and getting the reward. Okay? So the deployment phase is 20 minutes. That's the first thing. Second thing, its maximum lifetime is 1 hour, which means the entire process must happen in 1 hour. Otherwise, I believe that it'll just like destroy itself effectively. And these are its hit points, 50k across the board. This is somewhat important because it seems like the rogue drones will be attacking the structure as well. This is one of the reasons why I think that they might have not wanted to have a fax, because it'd be too easy for the fax to just protect the structure, or deployable rather. Once it is deployed, it'll be globally visible. So I believe that that means that as soon as you drop it, for that first 20 minutes, it's already going to be open on the overview. After its initial activation phase, it can then be linked to by pilots in the following ship: Carrier, Dreadnought, Supercarrier, and Titan. As I said, you cannot use faxes. You can bring faxes, but they cannot be the thing that links the beacon that makes it work. For the ship that begins the linking phase, it will be locked in place in space for a duration of 4 minutes. So the linking phase is 4 minutes. So you've got 20 minutes, then 4 minutes. While linking, the following will be in effect. Tether is blocked, which is kind of silly because you can't be anywhere close to a structure. Cloaking disrupted. Okay, I'm not sure how you'd be cloaking during it, but that makes sense. Warp drive disabled. Pretty standard stuff. Also, if it's locked in place, it, like, by definition, the warp drive should be disabled. But this is the interesting one. Resistance bonus of 10%. Buff to all resistance profiles. So this means that the capital that's running the site is gaining a 10% buff to all of its resistances. And that also means that this resistance bonus affects gankers, right? Now, one of the interesting, or like attackers, I guess you could say, one of the things that's important to remember about resistance bonuses is that as they go up, they become more effective. So one of the things I'll be interested in asking is whether or not this is stacked with anything else, other resistance modules and whatnot. I assume that this might be subject to diminishing returns, but I'm not 100% sure. Either way, this could actually be a pretty nice upgrade to the survivability of capitals, who are also always, considered to be pretty tough ships. After linking, the above four statuses will clear after a duration of 60 seconds. This took me a little while to realize what that meant. What that means is, during this period of linking phase, then, which is 4 minutes long, that entire time they will have this debuffs, and the debuff will remain for 1 minute after the linking phase is over. So a total of 5 minutes after linking, these buffs and debuffs will remain. After linking, the crab will begin to broadcast a signal in the solar system that will attract the attention of the rogue drone NPCs. When rogue drones are in proximity to the crab, they will block the scanning process and the attacking hostiles threats to proximity to the crab. So this is suggesting that this is somewhat like faction warfare sites. So you can't just tank your way through these rats. The overall timer will pause when these rats are on the system or on grid while they're fighting you, which is interesting because going back to this post, you can see infested ogres have been modified to no longer pause the site. So already we know that not all rogue drones count for this blocking effect. I suspect that that's because ogres are probably like the little tiny swarmer things, and you have to fight the bigger things in order to clear it. And you can tank the smallest things, but that's not 100% sure. The rogue drones must be destroyed to clear the perimeter so that the crab can continue its scanning. After 10 minutes of uninterrupted scanning, so 1 minute of buffed capital, I believe, and then 9 more minutes of sitting there guarding it, the crab will complete the analysis of rogue drones. Another piece of this uninterrupted scanning does not mean that the timer resets every single time. This is similar to a structure timer where basically, or a plex, where faction warfare complex, where whenever the rogue drones are here, the timer is paused, and when the rogue drones are cleared away, the timer resumes after a combined total of 10 minutes of scanning. So after 10 minutes of total scanning, regardless of interruptions, or whatever, the crab will complete its analysis of the rogue drones and will have salvaged enough technology to reward players with new mutaplasmids. So basically, now at the end of this 10 minutes time, which is a grand total of 35 minutes, right? Well, just under 35 minutes. Then you are done and you get your mutaplasmids. After successfully scanning, the crab will have mutaplasmids from rogue drones inside of the cargo hold. I assume probably a few. For 2 minutes after scanning, the ship that initiated the crab during the linking phase will have exclusive access to the cargo hold of the crab. This means, so assuming that I'm correct about my timeline so far, this would mean that basically from minute 34 through 35 or 36, the person who started the link is the only person that can loot the cargo hold. However, so it's kind of like an MTU, not an MTU. Yeah, an MTU, where only the person who deployed it, or in this case, linked to it, gets to access it. However, after that 2-minute phase, the crab will self-destruct, which will leave a wreck that has a 100% drop rate on the mutaplasmid. So basically, if somebody else finds that capital, kills it, because remember, you only need the capital to link. So once it's linked, during the 10 minutes, if you kill the capital or drive it off and finish the site, you would have to sit there for 2 minutes, the structure would blow up, and then you could loot it. I mean, okay. I could actually see that happening in LowSec. That'd be kind of interesting. Alternatively, you could theoretically pull out the capital and bring in a secondary force, and then you would just have to sit there and wait the extra 2 minutes. So now we go into the other piece of it, which is the part that we needed more information about, which is solar systems have a new property, which is called signal interference. Under the new Concord Rogue Analysis Beacon, Using the new Concord Rogue Analysis Beacon repeatedly in the same solar system will saturate a system with interference, preventing the crab from being able to broadcast a signal that can be isolated. This seems a bit more complicated than whatever. They could just say that, like, they are done finding things in the system for now, but whatever. In practical terms, the crab will not be able to be linked to if the interference is too high, as the rogue drones cannot locate it. Over time, the signal interference will decay back down to its quiescent state. This state of decay is always ongoing and not attached to server downtime. The time to fully recover a solar system with maximum signal interference is approximately 25 hours. So to go from full interference to no interference is a total of 25 hours. The user interface has been updated to show the signal interference in locations where appropriate. Man, so there's just a lot of information about a system now when you go into a system. Capsuleers now have a reserve of complex encryption qubits. CEQs are used when initiating a link to Concord Rogue Analysis Beacons. Over time, CEQs will regenerate back to their full reserve, and regeneration is always ongoing and not attached to server downtime. And the full time for full regeneration of CEQs is approximately 22 hours. So it takes just under a day for a person to fully recover, and it takes just over a day for a system to fully recover from being fully maxed out. As CEQs are only required by the crabs, your current reserve will be visible in a tooltip on a mouse over of the crab in your inventory. I hope it shouldn't just require it being in the inventory. Like, you should be able to check by just show infoing on a crab anywhere. Either way. So that tells us a little bit about how this goes. It tells us about how it operates, and I understand that there's probably a lot of people that are fervorously commenting in the comments below, talking about, like, oh, this or that bug is going on, or, why doesn't Ash know these things about how it mechanically works? Because the reason why I'm analyzing it this way and not going over, like, a bug that's currently happening is because often those kinds of things get cleared up relatively quickly. And so I'm trying to look at exactly what they say it does. And if it ends up being different, then we can always just update that. So sorry if this doesn't include today's exact concerns, but I did want this video to remain relevant to more than just like the next 2 days. That said, let's move on to the next major topic, which is the market. Now, we talked about a lot of this stuff already. The 3-month planned tax relief period is concluded, with new market tax changes being applied after review. Boom. All the stuff we said earlier. Wow, that's actually it. So we can actually just move on to the reward from those beacons. The rogue drone mutaplasmid technology is being discovered across New Eden by a deployment of the new Concord Rogue Analysis Beacons. These new mutaplasmids that mix elements with both Triglavian and rogue drone technology have differing characteristics. New mutaplasmids that can modify drones come in 4 variations: durability, firepower, navigation, projection. Each variation will favor positively in one attribute, with all other attributes having unknown results. The durability variation, for example, will favor the shield, armor, structure attributes positively, with no negative chances with the other attributes rolling between negative and positive chances. And every combination of durability, firepower, navigation, and projection of heavy, light, medium, and sentry. And there is these radical drone damage amplifiers and radical fighter support units. We will look at these mutaplasmids in-game when we're done with this reading. Now, added a new blueprint for the Concord Rogue Analysis Beacon. The Concord, this is available from Concord at the DED LP store. This is interesting because DED LP is currently extraordinarily valuable. This is the LP that you received when doing invasion sites, which are relatively difficult to do right now. So I would suggest that this LP being used for this seems to suggest that maybe, just maybe, there's going to be more cause to do work for Edencom and get rewarded for it. But that being said, this LP will give you, and it's 20,000 LP, so like, seriously guys, there's not enough of this DED LP to supply these beacons as it is, and it is actually relatively difficult for. It'll be interesting to see how this happens, because this DEDLP store choice is probably noteworthy. Beyond just getting the blueprint, though, you need also 20 million ISK and 20k LP for a 5-run BPC sets the minimum for what these things are worth pretty high, honestly. But then beyond that, we've got 2 million trit, 500,000 pyrite, 300,000 isogen, 2,000 zydrine, 420 megasite. This is pretty good. We should look into like how this compares to like battle cruiser. But then you've got 2 broadcast nodes, 2 self-harmonizing power cores, 1 sterile conduit, and 2 wetware mainframes. I believe at least 3 of the 4 of these are also what is used in POCOs. So these are relatively high-grade PI being used, and high-grade PI that's already in use. So yet more strain on PI systems. And then times per run, 3 hours and 20 minutes. Cool. Skills. Now, we'll talk about this, but change the rogue drone specialization skill to mutated drone specialization. This is just a language change. They rolled out the skill for us a little bit early, so that way we could be prepared for this. And I believe that I may have figured out why. So there is a series of skills, the specialization skills, for each of the drones, for each of the races, right? So normally you would have specialization for just light drones, but in the case, or light weapons or whatever. But in the case of drones, you have light Galente drones, light Caldari drones, light Amar drones. And the difference is that when the rogue drone mutaplasmid gets used on the drone, all of the drone races, like the original race of the drone, no longer is relevant to its final result. And therefore, they introduced this skill to function as kind of that replacement skill for the racial specializations, given that the race side of it is taken away. It's kind of interesting because a lot of other specialization skills kind of implies that it's a T2 module, and abyssal modules, I don't believe, are treated as T2 modules. But then again, I suppose that's only true for like weapons and stuff, which don't get mutaplasmid. So that is probably why that specialization skill. This is the first weapon system that has seen a mutaplasmid. So interesting. And then user interface, solar system, signal interference options can be found in update locations, show info window, solar systems, map. Here, I wanted to talk about this when it comes to the beacon. Map both versions now includes signal interference under statistics. This actually blows my mind, because we already have a thing about how people are using things like the ratting multipliers and other stuff like that in order to track where people are in order to hunt them. And this is often seen as a problem by the player base, but this seems to pretty outright indicate that they're fine with it, because they are blowing it out there. And remember, this signal interference resets within 25 hours, 25 hours at most. So if that thing's high, that means they're running them like now, or got done not too long ago. And being able to see it from the map means you can see this anywhere. You could look for hotspots pretty easily. Especially dangerous in low sec, because I assume that this map might even update before the site is finished. A tooltip is available on mouse over the Concord Rogue Analysis Beacon. Yes. This shows, like, here it is when you hover over it. Again, I hope that this is... Oh, no, I guess it won't be for show info. You literally have to have one of these things to see what your available CEQs are. I'm not sure if I like that, but it also shows you that the system has too much interference, or you lack sufficient CEQs. I had thought that this was going to have like diminishing returns, where it requires more CEQs the more interference it is, but I don't think that is the way it is. Okay, so let's get back to the rogue drones a little bit, and let's look at them in game. So, and behind us we can see the beautiful Uli star with the new structures that have been added to celebrate Edencom's defense of New Eden against the Triglavian Collective. I digress. So I have here, just to show you guys that this is, for example, a durability drone. This is a heavy one, and this is a sentry one. And what I wanted to show you is that the attribute changes are the same. So it doesn't matter what size drone it is the same modifications across the board. And you can also see that the armor hit points, shield, and structure hit points are all set to 0 to 30. So they can't go down because of this durability modifier. Whereas everything else can either go down by 30% or go up by 15%. So yeah, it looks like it is designed to potentially brick harder than it goes up for everything but the one that it is designed for. I also wanted to show that, like, okay, so for the medium drones, it's the exact same, and for the light drones, it's the exact same. And then likewise, as I said, all of the drone types of that size is allowed, but they all collapse into this specific rogue drone. Hold on. So here we have an example of the final product, a heavy mutated rogue drone. And, you know, it has a new model, it's a new it's a new type, and it does not matter which one it was originally, they all collapse down to this one thing. It also, these drones require mutated drone specialization in the same way that Tech 2 does. However, and mutated drone specialization is an Omega skill, completely locking out alphas from using mutated drones. So, interesting to note. Okay, so if we hop back over to this one, we can see I have all of the different types here. We can see that in this case, the armor hit points has the same -30 to +15, but now the damage modifier has that only going up factor. And it is more than 15 in each of these cases. In this case, it's 30. For projection, it's 30. This is probably more useful for sentries. However, I could definitely see this being useful for drones being used in Abyss, for Dark Abyss, for example. And then the navigation is 30. So everything's 30 up if it's designed for it, and except for the damage, which is 20, which is fine. Again, we don't actually know how much these are going to cost, because those rogue drone beacons are probably going to be pretty spendy, especially at first. And how many of these mutaplasmids come out from that is, I'm not 100% sure. And what nobody knows about is how rapidly those mutaplasmids will make it to market. The people who collect them may very well hoard them. So that's worth keeping in mind. So we'll have to see how this kind of impacts the game overall, but this is a new way of doing things. It's a way of introducing different, people have talked about wanting to do rogue drone mutaplasmids, or, I mean, not drone mutaplasmids or weapon mutaplasmids or whatever for quite some time. Fonsui in particular was chatting with me just the other day, calling victory that he basically designed this feature just a couple of years ago and posted it on the forums. So he's pretty proud about that. So this is something that has been called for quite some time, and it's a cool thing to see CCP experimenting with that. Now, to get a little bit into the lore side of things, or the background side of these things when it comes to these mutaplasmids, it's worth paying attention a little bit to the rogue drones that we see in the sites and the mutaplasmids themselves. I don't have any of the rogue drones pulled up, but the mutaplasmids are fine. It says, this bioadaptive mutaplasmid tool appears to share elements of both Triglavian and rogue drone technologies. First thought would be, maybe this is like the Triglavian rogue drones, right? Like they shared technology. First encountered as key Triglavian tool for mutating the performance of various pieces of technology, this mutaplasmid is designed to colonize and radically alter a heavy combat drone. It is possible that this application was originally developed for the use with rogue drones controlled by the Triglavians, as I just said, but hives controlled by the so-called unshackled overminds have also adopted it. Now, the Unshackled Overminds is a group of rogue drones that were put into the game like as an entity around the early days of invasions, but we didn't actually see until Poachfin. The rogue drones that you see in Poachfin that you can kill to gain both Triglavian and Edencom standings are Unshackled Overmind, showing that they are rogue drones that are not under control of the Triglavians. As with their repurposing of technology of New Eden's core empires, independent rogue drones clearly have no difficulties when it comes to using this characteristically Triglavian technology. So basically, these rogue drones that have been exposed to the Triglavians, but have not succumbed to the Triglavians' partnership, if I could be polite, such as the Nafka Overmind, they are in fact unshackled, and they have apparently stolen and adapted their own version of the Triglavian technology. The mutaplasmic colony integrated into this bioadaptive tool is very unusual, even by the standards of this bizarre Triglavian technology. It appears that rogue drone nanotechnology elements have successfully stabilized the potential for enhancement of weapon systems' damage output. On the other hand, the mutation ranges for other functionalities are rather unstable. That's just because this is a firepower one. If I went to tank, it would say tank, etc. Triglavian bioadaptive technology makes extensive use of engineering colonies of exomorphic bacteria that are used to grow, harvest, and adapt various resources found in abyssal dead space. Artificial colonization plasmids integrated into specialist tools used for direct adaptation of technology can be found in Triglavian caches in various stages of development. These mutaplasmids can be used to alter the characteristics of a wide variety of equipment types, dependent on the strain and bioadaptive tool for which they are integrated. I believe that might just be the generic mutaplasmid description that explains that they use basically a bacteria to modify technology, and that's what all the mutaplasmids are. So that kind of shows us a little bit more information. The Unshackled Overmind is ramping up their operations. They are also the rogue drones that are attacking you during these sites. So it's going to be interesting to see, especially with the idea of like DEDLP. It brings up a lot of questions about what, and also that newest scope video that really point to the fact that CCP is signaling that points to that they are signaling that more content involving Poachfin, Triglavians, Edencom, and the rogue drones are coming. We know that the Gateway Quadrant ends this, this is I think the last patch of the Gateway Quadrant. This one was cut short, and so the next quadrant, which is kind of go time when it comes to a lot of things, is coming soon. So CCP's been building up, and this is an opportunity maybe for them to pull some pretty serious triggers. It is a time to prepare. It is a time to get ready, and we will be bringing you all of the information that we can in order for you to understand it as we go forward during this tremendous changeover, this exciting time of opportunity. If you want to know more information about the scope video that I just referenced, I just posted a video on my YouTube a couple days ago that is my entire reaction to that scope video and talking about the history of various different pieces of it and what I thought about it, as well as other videos, including my reaction to the Pulse video that came out that same day, and more content on my YouTube channel. So with that said, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you made it this far, I hope it was useful to you. If it was, please make sure to like it and share it. And if you want to get more and you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to this channel and ring that bell so that way you get the content as I'm bringing it out. I'm trying to bring over or make it as regularly, very regularly content. I can't quite say weekly yet, but we're working on it. But either way, it makes it even more important for you to subscribe and so that way you get my videos as they come out, if that's what you want to do. But either way, if you like what I did, don't like what you did, you have some thoughts on it, or thoughts on what kind of mutaplasmid you'd like them to see next, please talk about it, please, down below in the comments. Actually, here's an even better question. When I talked to CCP Rise years ago about mutaplasmids at the very beginning of Invasions, I was like, I would really like it if there was a way to like enhance it in some way, so that way you can ensure that one of the stats doesn't go down. And it feels like even that feedback got listened to. So what is your thoughts on that? What is your thoughts on mutaplasmids where you can select one of the types of modifications for it to remain, to ensure it to be positive, while the rest of them can be random? I think that that's a very interesting plan, but what do you think? Please let us know in the comments below. As always, thank you so much to my patrons and all of you guys who come and check it out and share it. But most of all to my patrons who are listed down below, who make all this possible. If you want to join them, there's also a link down there. For only $1 a day, you can get on that list, and of course, get my eternal gratitude, as well as some other projects that I'm working on in their early versions of some of my scripts and whatnot, including the script that I'm about to record on updated locations or how to share locations, and use access lists, which I think is both incredibly not understood and also something that could really use a clear guide. So I'm looking forward to getting that out to you guys, and of course, returning back or doing more lore videos, all that stuff. So yeah, and obviously the one last thing, since you're still here, go ahead and head over to my Twitch channel if you haven't, and follow me there. It's because I go live most weekdays and for at least a few hours, and stream Eve more often than not. And of course, even when I'm not streaming Eve, I'm happy to discuss whatever it is that somebody wants to chat about when they come in to talk about it, assuming they're not being complete assholes. All right, with all that said, I've been Ashterothi. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about it since 2012, and I'm here to put Eve into context for you, my fellow Empyreans. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, I'll see you in space.